Hello, hello.
Hello, family.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to Hear Us Out.
Yes, I am Kareem.
I'm Renee, and again, I want to say thank you
Mhm.
to all of our subscribers, even to our first-time listeners.
Mhm.
Thank you
Thank
for
you very much
hearing us
for
out.
hearing us out.
Yeah, and I guess you could say last episode we had I guess we
We made a distinction
yeah
between the two, at least as we see it, the
mm-hmm,
two biggest, I would say, arenas
right
of black thought
right
and black genesis and how
mm-hmm,
we think and where we're trying to go. And just to clarify a point from the beginning, because it seems as if like a lot of people are trying to rectify
mm-hmm,
these two particular mindsets, which to us seem to be, to contrary
right
degrees, like unrectifiable, like two
right
ends of a magnet,
right.
right?
And so we mentioned descendant of slave, descendant of pharaoh,
Yeah.
and for for many of our listeners and just for many people in general when they hear that and you think, well, we are descendant of pharaohs, right?
Hmm.
But we're not talking about genetics here.
Yeah.
We're not talking that because yes, in the
Like in the
in the
most physical,
yes,
phenotypical,
right,
physiological sense,
sense,
yes, we are
so the
descendants of Pharaoh,
pharaohs,
but we're talking from a social economic standpoint,
right,
and it's more about, well, who are you trying to fix the world for?
correct,
What
right,
is what particular mindset
mm-hmm,
is guiding you? And that's what we're talking about. Like what a perspective
mm-hmm,
and the type of solutions you're looking for.
right. Because if you want solutions because you want to be a pharaoh again, you want to
Hmm.
be king again, then that's already in place
Yeah,
for you, right? For a descendant of for descendants of slaves,
yeah,
how how we're looking at it is that we see the fallacy in that. We see the fallacy in all forms of oppression, all forms of rulership in
yeah,
this way. And so that's the distinction I think
yeah. These because
we wanted to
these two
make.
things aren't comparable to each other.
That's
They
right.
cannot coexist
Right.
because to be pharaoh, right,
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote,
Right.
to be a king,
Mm-hmm.
right, in any sense, and no matter what time. Being a king back then meant your blood, right, but being a king today means your money,
Right.
right. So
And so it's sort of blood too. If you think about even
yeah,
now with rulers, yeah,
how
royalty and all
money
that other foolishness, right?
has inheritance and stuff
Right.
like that. It's just when you are trying to do that,
Mm-hmm.
right, and it doesn't matter. Like I said, it doesn't matter in what particular historical context you're existing in. Being a king, it ensures this type of system,
Right.
this type of cycle,
Right.
where there's always going to be people at the bottom and always
Mm-hmm.
going to be people at the top.
Well,
And the
as a
people
man,
at the bottom are going to want to get to the top,
top
and
right.
people at the top are going to want to stay at the top. And then
Mm-hmm.
so there's always going to be that friction,
Mm-hmm.
and there's always going to be that fall,
Right.
always going to be that madness, that mania
Mm-hmm.
that you're feeding into.
Mm-hmm.
Being, wanting that kind of ensures that,
Right.
because that's the only way that can possibly
Right.
exist for pharaohs and kings to possibly exist
Mm-hmm.
is if they are ruling over someone,
Right.
is if they are getting more out of it than someone else.
Right.
That's what we mean by mindset,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the type of mindset that lends itself towards.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're trying to correct the world for the pharaoh, right, that means that, like I say, you're trying to get a bigger piece of the pie.
Correct.
You're trying to
Right.
get more out of the system.
Right.
What you think you're owed, and I'm not saying that you're not owed that,
Right.
but it all goes into, well, what are you trying? What is it that you're trying to create?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what is it that you're creating? Because for you, it may be, I'm not trying to create anything. I'm
Right.
just trying to get what I'm owed.
Right.
But you have to know the cost of
Right.
that, and the cost of trying to benefit from this system. As it is,
Right.
trying to reach that throne.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to become a king is that someone is always going to be left behind.
Right.
Someone is always going to, get the short of the stick screwed over, whatever you want to call it. You know, what you do, you're not leaving, you're not erasing your position. You're just leaving it behind for someone else to fill.
Right.
And that's always is how it's going to be in this. Whereas, when we say a descendant of the slaves, that particular mindset, like you said, is one that is able to recognize the fallacy of this entire cycle,
Right.
this entire game that we as people have been playing, for a majority of our history,
Right.
and it is wanting to, is wanting a king has to ensure himself,
Right.
right? If you're a descendant of a pharaoh, then you're trying to recreate that piece of history.
Right.
You're trying to recreate that. You're trying to be there. Whereas, the descendant of the slave does not want to be a slave.
Right.
And does not want anyone to be a slave. So you're trying to eradicate that particular position.
Right.
And to get rid of that position,
Altogether.
get rid of the slave,
Right.
means to get rid of the king. Means to get rid of that metric altogether.
Right. Because if you have slaves, then you do have that king.
Yeah, you have
That's
masters.
right. Masters, right. That's how
it goes.
That's how that pattern works.
Yeah. So if it, like say, a king, the pharaoh has to insure itself, which means it has to insure this cycle. That's what you're trying to attain. That. Whereas the slave is not trying to attain any of that. Is resisting that, trying to get rid of that, and trying to create something else that means that that makes no one a slave.
Right.
That is able to ensure a better way of life for everyone.
Right.
And that's not to say that, in that particular mindset, there won't be people with more. Like you said, I forget in what particular. It's not about, no one person having everything.
Right.
It's about, trying to stop no one from having nothing.
Right. Right.
There's not a problem with people being rich. But there is a problem with people being poor.
Correct.
And we have to be, we have to wherewithal to understand that maybe, that type of poverty is only possible because that type of wealth is possible.
Right. They are linked.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to cut off that link.
That cycle.
Yeah, that cycle.
That cycle all
together.
A pharaoh cannot sever that link.
Right.
A pharaoh needs that link
Correct.
to be a pharaoh.
Right.
Whereas a slave is trying desperately to sever the link because the slave does not want to be a slave.
Correct.
So yes.
So that's what
we mean by descendant of pharaoh, descendant of slave. It's not about blood. It's about mindset.
Correct.
That thing that what is it that you want? What is it that you're trying to create?
Right. So yeah. I thought that we should sort of lend some more clarity to that. Yeah, and I think and again, if you have any more thoughts, concerns, and questions, give us a holler.
Yeah.
Put it in the comment section. Yes.
So yeah. So now to move on to the actual topic of this episode.
Right.
It is, a question that you had asked yesterday when we were discussing what are we going to talk about on this one. And I think it's a very, very good question because I think it lends itself to being able to expose, another fallacy, of the human condition.
Right. And the question that I asked is, well, how do you know you're right? How do you know you're right? What is it that makes you right?
Yeah.
So, how is it that?
Yeah, because a lot of this comes down to when we say like, especially from us, when we're saying like that's it's not that, it's this.
Right.
Like we think that it's supposed to be this way. It's supposed to look a certain way. It's supposed to feel and be a certain way. That comes from us knowing that we're right.
Right.
Right. And so you ask, well, how do you know that?
Right.
How do you know that you're right? And there's a lot of things that we can say that might be able to lend some credibility toward these points. Like we can talk about historical precedents.
Right.
We can talk about what's happening right now.
Right.
We can talk about all these things and how they lend themselves to our particular idea of what the solution is supposed to be.
Right. Because a lot of times, like I mentioned,
Mhm.
is that are you right because it's running up against,
Yeah.
the things that are happening and you see that as wrong.
Yeah.
So your ideas, your particular, philosophies and opinions. So are you right because it's running up against that? Or are you right
Because of something else.
because of something else?
And that's what I was saying.
Mhm.
Is that you are looking for your world to tell you that you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because you're looking at everything that has happened. It is happening,
Mhm.
and it most likely will happen.
Right.
All of this is confirmation
Mhm.
to my particular point of view.
Mm-hmm.
But someone who has a contrary opinion about things, a dissenting opinion, might look at all of the same things that you're looking at and come to a much different conclusion.
Right.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So, what exactly makes them wrong?
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what makes them right?
Right.
Right, because they're looking at historical precedents. They're looking at social, the zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at all these things,
Mm-hmm.
and they are coming to their conclusion.
Right.
Right. So where's the dissonance?
Mm-hmm.
Where's that dissonance coming from?
Right.
Where's the rightness?
Yes.
And that and that in itself, I think, lends itself to humanity's need to have some type of objective measure.
Right.
Something outside of ourselves that is truer, in a sense, than us, than human beings, that is able to confirm our opinions and our perceptions of reality.
Yes.
Whatever that may be. Whether it's God or it's science or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We want something outside of ourselves that is truer than ourselves to be there to make us right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I've always I don't I don't know if we've talked about this particular point before
Mm-hmm.
on it, but when I said that there are some things that are provable,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't make necessarily those things true.
Yes.
Yeah, that you may be able to prove something,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't necessarily make it true. Now I know that seems like a contradictory idea, so
Right.
allow me to explain.
Mm-hmm.
Say that you're, and this is the exact same what you call it, antidote that I used to explain this yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Say that you have 2 plus 2 equals 4.
Right.
Right? You have numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were to ask, a mathematician or a scientist or anyone, where numbers come from,
Mm-hmm.
they would say that, that numbers, or a majority of them would say that numbers, they are that's the language of the universe. Right?
Yes. So far, so
That
good.
and
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
if that they seem to be intrinsic to the nature of reality,
Okay.
right? You like numbers and being
Mm-hmm.
able to parse that out.
Mm-hmm.
These mathematic, quantifiable systems.
Mm-hmm.
These things are intrinsic to reality.
Mm-hmm.
That if we were to go away, the numbers would remain, because that's the metric upon which reality is built
Okay.
and perceived. And I would say that, but that's not necessarily true, right?
Yes.
Because say you look up into the sky and you see a star.
Mm-hmm.
You see the star and you say, well, that's one star,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but you look up at the night sky, you see another star, and you say, okay, there's 2 stars,
Mm-hmm.
and there's 3 stars. It's more than one star. It's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stars,
Right.
right? Well, who's saying that?
Right. Is the universe saying?
Is that what the universe is saying?
Or
Or
is
is
that
that
how you're responding?
what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the universe in any can't speak,
Right.
right? Not in any metric that we can possibly understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not it can't speak. It's not saying anything.
Right. That's what
Right?
we're lending
That's
it.
what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you are able to perceive your reality. That's
Mm-hmm.
how you parse it out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Of being more than one.
Mm-hmm.
So numbers and mathematics and and science, that isn't the language of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's the language of the human perception
Of the
of the
universe.
universe.
Right.
And that's why there's always a bit of dissonance in it. That's why there's always, a contradiction in it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying is that 2 plus 2 equals 4. That is a provable fact
Right.
of mathematics, of the
Right.
axioms that we have set up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But that doesn't necessarily make it true of reality in
Right.
any objective sense.
Right. And I think I used the example of like like the mother,
Mm-hmm.
like one woman, one man, one and one, right?
Yeah.
When they come together, they create one, right?
Another child. Yeah.
Oh, one child.
Yeah.
And then in certain instances, they can create two,
Mm-hmm.
with twins, and triplets, and all kind of them. So 1 plus 1 doesn't necessarily always make 2. It makes another 1. It could make 2. It could make, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that we perceive it
Mm-hmm.
is not necessarily the way that it is.
That's what we're saying
Mm-hmm.
is that, you have these numbers, you have this language.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's numbers, like I said, whether it's numbers, physical laws,
Mm-hmm.
or commandments, whatever
Right.
it may be, you have these things, and you are looking for them to be truer than you, to exist outside of you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like what we talked about with Ion, right? The metaphysical,
Right.
right? You're looking for there to be a true metaphysical thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
think about a circle, right? There are no perfect circles in nature, right? The only place where a perfect circle exists is in the metaphysical, in
Mm-hmm.
the realm of the ideal, of the
Mm-hmm.
platonic forms,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so every circle that you see in nature is a derivative of that circle.
Mm-hmm.
Or like I said yesterday, you could talk about a chair, right?
Right.
And there's a platonic, perfect, ideal chair.
Yes.
And every chair that humanity has ever created is just a derivative
Mm-hmm.
of that
perfect
perfect
chair.
platonic chair,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's what makes that chair a chair, is that there is a piece of the ideal,
Mm-hmm.
of the absolute
Mm-hmm.
in your derivation, in your version
Right.
of it. That's what makes it that. Whatever that absolute lies in, like I said, whether it's in mathematics or it's in God, whatever aesthetic you like to give to the metaphysical,
Right.
That's what makes it true for a lot of people. And I said that lends itself to when I was talking about how racism, has become so systemic
Mm-hmm.
in our country that it happened from the top
Top
down.
down. Right.
Right? And you have these leaders who put these laws in place in
Mm-hmm.
this particular thing that heavily impacts
Right. Impacts.
the genesis, the cultural genesis of a people.
Right.
And that's why these ideas have stick, and that we're still dealing with them.
Mm-hmm.
Is because they are still law, and
Right.
it's still happening from the top
And that's
down.
why you get these different what you call derivatives,
Mm-hmm.
versions, or what Malcolm X said is like the Cadillac, the new model that rolls out.
Mm-hmm.
It's always
Something else.
else.
You know.
You're not ever dealing with just one
And like you said, we're not dealing
right.
with the with the Jim Crow that our grandparents had to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what we are
Dealing
dealing
with.
with is just, like I said, this neoliberalist nightmare that
Right.
we've been living in from that Richard Nixon,
Right.
Ronald Reagan era,
Mm-hmm.
the Southern Switch
Mm-hmm.
era, where it's not explicit anymore.
Right.
It's that implicit
Mm-hmm.
double talk, like we're not going to criminalize being black. We can't do that anymore. But we can criminalize drugs, and then by having drugs associated with black
people, right,
we can now criminalize
right.
black people.
Right. But we can't say that.
We can't say that.
It.
We can't do it directly.
Right.
So there's a lot of indirect, like I said, this neoliberalist, stuff that we're dealing with.
Right.
Right. For the last 50 years, we know that racism.
Right.
We know that racism
yes,
very
quite
well. That's the one we're dealing with. That's the one that is causing this reckoning that we're seeing. And like I said, it's happening from the top down.
Right.
Right? So it just makes sense to believe that, as you say, if you want to fix that, you address the top.
Yes.
Right? So when you think about truth, in a sense, that you have this truth that lies in the metaphysical realm at the very top. Right? And all other truths are just emanations of that one metaphysical, absolute, divine, quote unquote, truth.
Right.
Right? And everything else comes from that. So if you're saying, well, then what makes something right?
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
What makes something right? It's if you believe in an absolute, that there is an absolute. If you believe in that thing, in that particular way, then what makes that thing right is whatever piece of that intrinsic absolute truth that lies in your particular opinion of it.
Fair enough,
in your derivation of it, in your variance of what it is. Whatever piece of that metaphysical truth lies in that is what makes it true.
Yes.
I said but that's if you believe in that. If you believe that there is an absolute, a measure, a metric upon which reality is. If you think numbers are more than just human perception of reality, but are the nuts and bolts upon which reality has been crafted. I don't necessarily believe that. And I said, for me, it's that's human perception. That's how we're seeing it. I don't, and I've said many times before that I don't think there is any objective truth.
Right.
But there is one truth. There's many lies out there.
Definitely.
But there is no one truth. So for me, there's no objective way to say that you are right.
Right.
There is
right.
You say, so you ask, how do you know when you're right?
How do you know you're right?
It's a matter of faith. It's in what you believe. And what you believe to be right is because it feels right to you. It scratches that internal itch. Like for me, reality isn't from top down. Reality doesn't come from the metaphysical and we're living in some free reflection of
right.
it. That there's some physical stage. For me, but it's not a denial. Either of the metaphysical.
Right.
For me, but it happens from instead of from the top down.
So from where you are,
down to up.
Right.
That you see your reality. You're perceiving your reality. And it is the human consensus, like I said, the human condition, those things, how we decide to live, what we place value in, that truly defines the metric of what our world is, and that it's happening from the bottom up, and that which lends itself into how we say we ought to fix and address the problems that we are facing today. That you can't expect the people at the top
to fix this.
They're the ones who are directly profiting benefiting from the way things are. If you want things to change, then it's going to have to happen from the bottom up, where you are. And like I said, in your community, you starting right there. Right? Instead of you going to them, they're going to have to come to you.
Right.
That's how as far as I'm concerned, that's how we fix it. And like I said, that lends itself, to my philosophical belief at all, in its entirety, about the nature of reality and where
Mm-hmm.
the rightness lies.
Right.
Right? It lies in the human consensus.
Right.
It lies in what we agree upon.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's a lot of people, especially more scientifically minded individuals, who look at that and see that as like a solipsistic nightmare,
Right.
right? And solipsism, like I said, it is the philosophical belief that says that the only thing that truly exists is you,
Right.
the individual,
Right.
and everything else merely exists as
Your approximation
as an extension
of it. Yeah.
of your
Mm-hmm.
perception
Mm-hmm.
of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and then nothing truly exists outside of the self.
Right.
And a lot of scientists and mathematicians bristle.
Yes. Right. Right. That's exactly right.
Like, because
Right.
that there is
no
a true physical world,
right,
that we can see, that we can quantify.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, and I don't think that I'm a solipsist. I don't think that, because it's like I said, it's not a denial
Right.
of the physical world. I believe that there is a physical, tangible world.
Yes.
When I see like
This stuff,
a rock,
right?
I think and I know that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
But I am not entirely married to the idea that that thing is a rock.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what we call it. That's
Mm-hmm.
how we perceive it.
Right.
That's the role it plays in our particular mind.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that that's actually what that thing is.
Right. Or that is the only thing that it can be.
Or whatever.
Right.
However you
Right.
quantify it.
Right.
I believe that there is a true physical reality, but
Mm-hmm.
I doubt humanity's ability to truly be able to quantify that
Mm-hmm.
world. I think, like I said, all we can ever do is approximate.
Yes.
All we
And
can
we
ever,
talked about
yeah,
that
we
many
talked
times.
about the minute. All we can ever do is get so close,
Mm-hmm.
because our tools, our senses,
Right.
everything that we have developed, has shown. We know the failings of these things.
Mm-hmm.
We know they can only get us so far. We can only go so far in being able to define any objective measure for our reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, and I don't think, but I think it's a mistake to think that our tools are getting us closer to a true physical reality. You're making assumptions of our world and of our universe,
Mm-hmm.
that you're expecting to be true, but which are not.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't true. They're provable.
Right.
They're provable by the measures we set up.
Right.
But that doesn't make them true. Right? And I've said, well, so if that's the case, then as far as I'm concerned, there must be an inverse, where there are things that are true of
Mm-hmm.
our world, but can't be proven,
Mm-hmm.
not by the metrics that we set up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there are things in this world, like I said, the ineffable,
Mm-hmm.
the axiomatic,
Right.
that just are, that we feel, that are intrinsic to reality.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, that's numbers.
Okay. Right.
For some people, that's what that is. I don't agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the only intrinsic thing that we have, the only axiomatic thing, is our perception of it.
Yes.
And that everything that we've been doing has not been leading us toward developing a sense of an objective reality, but developing a sense of humanity,
Mm-hmm.
and the role that we play, mm-hmm. in the grander narrative of the universe, mm-hmm. and where we lie and how we see and the shape the reality takes for us.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it is. That's what it's going to be for everything in
Right.
the universe. And that's why there's always going to be something that negates or supersedes or undercuts,
mm-hmm.
your particular perception of reality. Like, it's impossible for bees to fly. Like, by all metrics of reality that we know, it should be impossible for bees to fly.
Mm-hmm.
But bees are flying.
Right.
You ask what do you call someone who studies aerodynamics?
An aerospace engineer?
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. I know that they're like some type of like some type of physics, whatever. But
Okay.
if you ask
Oh,
them,
okay,
yeah,
okay, okay, yeah.
what what is it that allows planes to fly?
Uh,
They know the dynamics of it.
mm-hmm.
They know, what's at play there,
Right.
but they don't know what is that one thing. What's more important than the other thing?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what is that one thing that allows us to fly.
Mm-hmm.
There are things about reality that are eluding us
Mm-hmm.
that we just know are possible, and
Right.
we understand the systems, at least how they appear to us.
Mm-hmm.
We don't understand what they are,
Right.
and I think that it's impossible for us to understand what they are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that all we can ever understand is how they are represented to us.
Right.
So how I see it, it's a marrying of the two ideas
Mm-hmm.
of the metaphysical and of the solipsistic,
Mm-hmm.
to where there is a physical reality,
Yes.
there is an objective measure,
Mm-hmm.
but it is impossible for humanity to reach that.
Right. Like I say, it's more of a striving.
Yeah.
That's what, at least for me, that's what this is
Mm-hmm.
about. It's a constant striving.
Yeah.
And in that striving, yes, I do have my own perceptions.
Yeah.
And I have my own perspectives. And in my striving, you encounter and you learn, you engage. And with that, at times your perspective changes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So in that case, you're still like constantly striving. It's a movement type thing. I don't know any other way to really
Yeah.
explain it. And so right now, what I see that is happening is that we have this perspective,
Mm-hmm.
And it's causing us not to really move, or that we think that we're going in a different direction, but it's more of the same.
Mm-hmm.
But we think that we're moving. It's like the hamster on the wheel. Yeah, the hamster is moving,
Well,
but
like I said,
it's
for a descendant of the slave,
yes,
right? For someone who's trying to get rid of that,
that's right,
then there is no difference.
correct.
For someone of a particular philosophical
Philosophical mind,
leaning, then there is very much a difference in all of them.
right. So, but I don't see how. Well, I don't think the two can exist.
What to?
Like the how, the constant striving,
Mm-hmm.
and where we're moving, but we're not going anywhere. But that's just, you're still thinking that we are moving. It's like descendant of the slave and
Uh-huh.
descendant of Pharaoh, right?
Yeah,
How is it that, like, I don't think those two
can coexist.
can coexist.
Yeah, but the idea of the constant striving and also the hamster.
Right.
Um,
I know that they're there.
yeah.
I know that it's there.
Mhm. I think that they are showing. I don't think. I think for us is trading in one hamster wheel for another,
Another.
right?
Right.
But for one that is more conducive toward what we think the world ought to be,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Because I think even in trying to get rid of this system and trying to get rid of slaves, there's, like I said, there's no point where you're going to, like, all right, we did that and that's it.
Right.
You're going to have to
Constantly,
constantly
right.
keep
Doing
doing that.
right.
Much as it's to constantly keep doing this.
Right.
That's what you're going to have to do.
Right. There's no stopping.
So
right.
you're going to be on a hamster wheel,
Regardless.
no matter, regardless
regardless.
of what you believe. But it's about like in what you want.
Mhm.
So in striving and constantly striving,
Mhm.
right? That is a hamster wheel.
Right.
That is just another cycle,
Right.
right? But it's one, like I said, that it lends itself to what we believe the world ought to be,
Mhm.
right? But this hamster wheel that we're on
Right now. Right.
is what the world is showing itself to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming from a different consensus, a consensus that
Right.
we, had a long time ago
Mm-hmm.
about the nature of our world. A very primordial
Mm-hmm.
system.
Yeah, right now what's happening is that
'Cause
we have
like we've
something in
done
place
this
that doesn't fit the needs of the people. It's
well,
well, and then
it
for
does fit
those
the need.
I'm about to say,
Yeah,
I'm about just that's why I stopped
yeah.
because I'm like, well, yeah, it does
Because
in
like
a
you said,
particular way,
if it's the striving
right?
that you're looking for,
Then no, it doesn't.
then yes, it does.
Well, in a different,
Yeah,
yeah, yes, you're right.
yeah.
In a different, right? In
If
a
that's
different,
what you're
right,
looking for, if
right.
that's how you want to strive,
Mm-hmm.
like the striving of a pharaoh,
Right. I was about to say, right. We're going
right?
to strive like the pharaoh,
If
right?
that's how you want
Or
to strive
strive,
to become a billionaire, to become rich, to reach that place, to
mm-hmm.
become a king, to be a
Right,
king.
right,
If that's the striving that you want,
right,
then be on that hamster.
right.
Like, but for me, I said I want to be free.
Yes.
I want to be free. I'm
Yeah.
tired of this.
Right.
I'm tired of that hamster wheel.
Well, mm-hmm.
Doesn't work for me,
Right,
and I think it doesn't work for you.
right.
That's just my opinion.
Opinion. Right. At least for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, for you.
yeah. For
Yeah.
me, I don't think it works for anybody.
Right.
I think all it ever leads is to suffering,
Right.
and to madness and desperation,
Mm-hmm.
and to just more of the same.
Mm-hmm.
You never feel satisfied
Right.
in that system, no matter where you are, no matter if you're at the top or the bottom.
Yeah, because
You know?
there's a particular kind of angst that comes when you're at the top because you know that you're going to have to.
Like that's my opinion.
Yeah, that's
Someone
also
at the
there.
top may be like, I am fully satisfied
Right,
here,
right,
and I'm fully satisfied, staying here and
right,
running on this wheel.
right.
I'm sure if I were to create that world,
Mm-hmm.
right, a world, for the slave where there is none of that, there may be people who are like, well, they can't strive like they used to, right?
Right,
They
right.
can't get to the places
Right.
that running on the hamster wheel
We'll-
we're running on now has been able to lead them to.
Right.
There's going to be another dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
Another thing.
Yeah.
People are going to feel as if their freedoms are being hindered in that.
Right.
Because they can't go
Right.
as far.
Right.
Right? So
Correct.
it's all just a matter of what you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like I said, it's about, so in a mindset,
Mm-hmm.
you can't do both.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But in the most physical of sense, you're going to have to.
Right.
Like I said, it's not about metaphysical
Mm-hmm.
or solipsistic.
Right.
It's about finding a way to merit it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about trying to be objectively right. It's about understanding your rightness
Right.
along with everyone else's
Mm-hmm.
rightness. And all of that is going to have to find a way to exist with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be able to exist in your particular philosophical view
Mm-hmm.
of what the world is
Right.
and what it's supposed to be.
Right.
But it's not, let's just say, death of the ego. It's
Right.
not your world. It's
Mm-hmm.
our world.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to find a way for all of this to have to exist together.
Right.
Right? So it's not necessarily about compromising either. But it's not about not compromising
Either, right?
Yeah, it's
right.
about understanding
Mm-hmm.
that the pharaoh wants to be king, right?
Right. The slave doesn't want to be a slave.
And the slave doesn't want to be a slave.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do about that?
Right.
Right? Now you ask the pharaoh, right? Then you would say, well, everyone's going to have to be king. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's going to have to be king.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that that's impossible.
Right.
Everyone can't be king.
Right.
The only way that you can be king is if there are slaves.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You ask a slave, well, nobody can be king.
Right.
That's impossible
Mm-hmm.
because everybody wants to be a king.
Right. Correct.
Right?
Right.
So what do?
Right.
You have to change the aesthetic.
Yes.
You have to change the form.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. You can be a king.
Uh-huh.
But it can't be like this
Right.
anymore.
And it can't.
And it
correct.
can't
Be at the and it can't be
Can't
at
be
the
at my expense
Right. You want to
of
be
the
king?
people.
Right. It can't be at the expense of the people.
It
Right.
can't come that way anymore.
Right. So you can be king, just not.
Not at my expense.
Right.
Right?
How about that?
And you're like, well, that makes it impossible to be a king by the metrics we've defined.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you are going to have to redefine
what it is to be a king.
What it means to be a king.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to redefine it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you create something that is able to coexist with everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Because the slave, that particular mindset has no problem doing it.
Right.
The slave just doesn't want to be oppressed anymore.
Right. See,
right?
Correct.
But the king, in that particular mindset, is the only one that is either willing to accept the oppression
mm-hmm.
or not willing to accept the cost
right.
of their ambitions.
Right.
But they still want it either way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're the one, you need to have your coming to Jesus moment.
Right.
You need to be able to see the forest from the trees and understand that in this particular form,
mm-hmm.
there is no way for you to be a king without someone being a slave.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to redefine what that means.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not top, bottom, top. You're going to have to meet me.
Right.
You're going to have to meet me.
Mm-hmm.
So either you're going to have to accept that, you know, people are going to be on the bottom. It's always going to fail someone.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to be oppressed. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Either you're going to have to accept the wanton madness and cruelty of a world that comes at the cost of its people.
Right.
Accept that. Or change.
Or change.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to meet you. That's not how, like I said, that's not how understanding works.
That's right.
You're the one having the eternal crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty clear on my end.
Yeah, it's
right.
pretty clear what this is.
Right.
And it's pretty clear.
Right.
It's pretty clear for you, but you don't want to accept the cost.
The cost.
You don't want to accept.
Mm-hmm.
Or you do accept. Either way, we have a problem here.
Right.
And either way, we know where it is we need to go.
Right.
Right? So can we coexist, or am I going to have to go through you?
Mm-hmm.
You have to choose that.
Right.
You know, that's what I'm saying, like from the bottom to the top.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't make those demands if they're the only ones providing the jobs. If you're constantly going to have to go to them.
Right.
You are going to have to create something where you are that gives you that leverage.
Right.
To be able to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to gradually change our world. And like
mm-hmm.
I said, and when
at
you
that
have
point,
that,
right.
you won't need this.
That's right.
It's already going to be a marrying of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, the light in and of itself vanishes the dark.
Right.
It doesn't have to try.
Right.
It just does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if you're asking how do I know I'm right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I know this is right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? For me, if you're asking me, because like I said, I don't believe that there is any way for you to be truly correct.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is one right for you to be.
Right.
It's all about what do you want?
Right.
And what you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you want from your world, for you, and for the people around you?
Right.
What is it that you want?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you don't want this anymore, then you go a particular way.
Right.
Right? But there's also but how do you not want it?
Right.
Do you not want to get screwed over anymore? Or do you not want to be oppressed?
Right.
Right? Like I said, what do you want?
Right.
You have to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's not about being right. It's about doing
right.
Mm-hmm. You know? And I would say, okay, it's not just about being right. It's about doing right as well.
Right.
It's
not the just.
Like it's not
even,
it's not
even
about,
though I like to use just, but no, that's not what it is.
Not,
right.
I
got you. I got
it's
you.
not about,
like
they don't come at the cost of each other.
Right.
Not from this way.
Right.
You know? You're going to have to be able to see it your way. Understand that, you know, life isn't just about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all going to have to find a way to be able to live together.
Right. Do we want a community?
Yeah. Do we want community?
Right.
Do we want unity? Do we want a brotherhood?
Right.
Being a king doesn't give you that, bro.
Right.
It doesn't. It's not. It's impossible for it to.
Right.
You, like I said, profit means you are getting more than someone else. That kind of precludes the level playing field unity idea.
Right. See what I'm saying? Right. You know, so what is it again?
That's it. You want to be able to have your cake and eat it too.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have it.
Right.
I understand the metric. I understand the cost.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but that's how it appears to me.
Mm-hmm.
You may think you can have your cake and eat
it too.
You may think that you can't have your brotherhood of kings, your League of Nations, your UN.
Right.
You know,
But here we are.
here we are. You have it.
Yeah, you have
existing,
it. Yeah, it's here.
and it's completely impotent.
Right.
No power.
Right.
The world's on fire.
Right. And with your League of Nations and your UNs, and where are you in this?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you? You know, look,
That's not how it goes.
that's not how it goes. We know that's not how it goes. The fact is, well, not the fact. I don't want to, it's that.
Look,
Just said that. Yeah.
The fact
so
is,
the fact is,
you have to understand where this is coming from.
You have to understand where this is coming from, and the willingness. I always use the word retreat.
Mm-hmm.
Your willingness to walk away, just to take a step back,
Mm-hmm.
just to take a step back to get a clearer
Look at it
vision.
as taking a step forward.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
You're not walking away from it. You're walking past
it. Correct.
However way you want to look at
Yeah.
it. It just can't be this anymore.
And you know it can't be this because you're frustrated daily from it.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you think that you're winning, right? Even when you think you're winning,
Mm-hmm.
there is still an amount of frustration that you shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
When you're winning or if you're winning,
Mm-hmm.
And yet, here we are.
Like I said, I'm not going to speak to what you think.
Right.
I'm only going to tell you what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that, my sight fails me. It
Mm-hmm.
fails all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So all I can do is approximate.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to tell you what I see.
Right. That's what we're doing.
I see madness.
Yes.
I see foolishness. I see death. And I see a people who is tired of the madness and the foolishness and the death.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're tired of the result. But they're not tired of the question.
How many times
Mm-hmm.
I've said that?
They're tired of the 4.
Yeah.
But we still think it's 2 + 2.
Yes.
So to get somewhere else, you need to be tired of the result and the question.
That's right.
You need to be tired of all
of us. That's right. Yeah. There's no picking.
Mm-hmm.
It all has to go. At least from our perspective, it all has to go. There is no picking. It all has to go, and you build from there.
Yeah.
There's no saving none of this.
Yeah, so,
it all needs to go. Yes.
So in conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
right? In conclusion, how do you know you're right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in our opinion,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know.
Right.
It's impossible for you to
know. Mm-hmm.
You're just acting in faith.
Right.
That there is a true, objective, real world. But there is nothing that we humans can do that is going to allow us to absolutely reach that.
Right.
We're always, at some degree, we're always going to be fumbling in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
We're always going to have to approximate.
Right.
And that's kind of the point. Because it's not about trying to understand the objective world.
Right.
It's about trying to understand us.
Right.
And what it means to us.
Mm-hmm. And how to live.
And how to live in it.
Mm-hmm.
How to live with each other.
Right.
So like I said, it's not solipsistic. It's not entirely about you.
Right.
But it's not entirely about the objective either.
Right.
It's about how we, all of us together, can live together.
Mm-hmm.
How we can all prosper together.
Not profit off of each other.
Not profit off of each other.
Right.
Not manipulate one another.
Right.
To extend our own goals.
Mm-hmm.
But how all of us can live in our dream
Mm-hmm.
together. We can all get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
All of us, every last one of us.
Right.
We can do that.
Right.
If we are willing to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? if we are willing to change and redefine what some things mean,
Right.
And understand that, like the question leads to its answer. If you're tired of this answer, it's time to ask a different question.
And to do something
and
different.
do something else.
Yeah.
So like, we don't know if we're right. Like I said, and like we said from the very beginning, it's not about being right. We're not trying to give you a manual.
Right.
A roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
Those things aren't real.
Correct.
And if someone is to tell you that they are real, then they're lying.
Right. Because even in the drawing of your roads change.
People change.
The way that transportation, like there's so many things that comes around that changes, your plan, your road, your curriculum, or whatever the case may be, and you have contract. Your contract. Oh my God! And so you have to be able to move, with that.
Yeah.
And that's been, I think, a very difficult task for people to do. Is to move.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard for people to change.
Yes.
And we want to change.
Mm-hmm.
We want something different.
Right.
But we don't understand what that means. Like I said, it's the question.
Right.
The question leads you to that answer.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be a king anymore. Not like this.
Right.
You got to answer different questions.
Right.
So, like I said, all right. If you have any comments, concerns, questions, whatever it may be, leave them in the comments.
Yep.
You contact Mama on the Facebook.
Right.
Like that. And, thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you.